native speaker of the English language, you're already an expert. Who knew? We are born experts of the English language by default. You are a native speaker of the language, and so you bring to the table a lifetime of knowing grammar that is specifically associated with the English language. You bring a lifetime or a time of producing grammatically correct sentences to the table. And I'll say this, especially, and I think we're going to get into it. I think in part 3 of this particular series, you have what you call almost like cultures of language. So it's okay for me to say I ain't in certain areas or in certain settings. It's grammatically okay for that to, come out my mouth. Typically, no one's going to correct me if I say, man, I ain't going over there. They know what I'm talking about. But you may go to another place and it's unacceptable. So this particular book that I was reading, it gets into, just like regions, what's appropriate in certain regions, what's appropriate in certain cultures. And then it kind of gets into, well, who's right? So I'm not going to kind of get into the who's right and who's wrong when it comes to language, because we know there is a standard to the English language that's expected. And I do want to focus on that as a writer and as a consulting of writer, because there is a standard in the world, in the earth, about how English should be written and how English should be spoken and how English should be transcribed and described and all of that good stuff we talked about in the It Is Written series. So I do want to put that out there, though, because it is appropriate in certain settings to write a certain way, just like it's appropriate when we're texting to use shorthand, but it's not appropriate for you to write a cover letter in your texting tone, in your texting language. We know that that's not appropriate. So there's a set standard for English, and know that you bring a lifetime of grammatically speaking the English language correctly, especially if you've been around people who form their sentences correctly. I think that's even the more key. The more we hear grammatical structures spoken to us, from infancy all the way up, even the more into adulthood, the more grammatically correct I believe we're going to be more inclined to speak. The more we've heard slang, and the more we've heard different cultural sentence structures and different words we use in different settings with our friends and so on and so forth, and even in our families, then our structure is going to change, and how we put our words together is going to change, and those things may or may not be what they consider standard, if that makes sense. So we just bring a lifetime of understanding that baby slept is a not quite a complete sentence, and your kid may say that baby. If I'm a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and God, I don't have kids, so I'm not quite sure about these ages and the words. So if I say sleepy, the baby just gonna say sleepy, and they're trying to convey to you that they are sleepy. But then as they progress in age, as they hear more words, as they're understanding more of what you're saying, me sleepy, they'll say me sleepy, and then you already know as the parent, they're trying to tell you they're sleepy, and then they'll grow some more and have some more understanding, and you'll continue to speak to them, you'll continue to read to them, they'll continue to hear words and hear people talking around them via their TV programs, Arthur, and all of the other shows that help our kids and help students and kids, get an understanding of how language works. Then they'll transform and progress into whole sentences. I am sleepy. So no longer is it sleepy, 1 word, me sleepy, 2 words, then you get into 3 words, I am sleepy, and you have a complete sentence. And no one has set the baby down or the child down and said, hey, you're supposed to say I am sleepy. They just do. So that's what this series, this particular series about, or this particular takeaway is about. We just over time begin to structure our sentencely correctly as we are learning more, as we are growing more, as we are hearing more of correct sentence structure spoken to us and heard by our ears. This is the same reason why the more we read, we are typically better writers. So if you want to increase your writing skills, read more. Why? Because you're going to pick up the reading and the writing style, more specifically the writing style of what you read. So if you read an author who does an excellent job of using compound complex sentences and simple sentences within the on one page, you know, you're going to pick that structure up. So the more we read, the more we see how things should be written from again, an English standard perspective, and we get a chance to demonstrate that, and just subconsciously we begin to write like that. So again, if just a nugget for you, if you want to be a better writer and just start reading more, you're going to pick up the tone, you're going to pick up the sentence structure, you may pick up the sound of that author that you read, or the authors that you read, and you'll begin to write like them. You may even begin to talk like them if you do it often enough. So that's what I mean by this first takeaway. You are a native speaker of the English language, and because you're a native speaker of the English language, then you're already an expert on grammatically structuring sentences correctly. Got it? This is what they call language competence. We are competent in the English language just simply because we are native speakers of the language. And again, I just want to stress, because I now share this. I had a student who came to me. I said, you guys aren't supposed to be in the hallway. And he politely said, Miss Harris, that's not right. And I'm like, you aren't. And I'm literally like looking like, hold on, let me go back in my head and see what I said. You guys aren't supposed to. I said, no, I said the sentence correctly. He was like, no. He was like, it's supposed to be you ain't. And I said, no, you know, ain't is not a standard English word. So it's supposed to be you are not. You know, quick lesson for him. But because that's all he heard in his household, or probably around the people he hung with, that's what they use, and so he thought that grammatical structure was correct. So that was his language competence. So I do want to kind of make that put that in there, that thought in there as well, because I'm assuming, this is an assumption, that the author is assuming everybody is hearing the same standard English language. And that may or may not be true. That the standard language that the world considers standard English may or may not be spoken around everyone. And so you may have people who will say you ain't as correct, you know, and those kinds of things. I hope that's clear what I'm saying. Yes, we are native speakers of the English language, and yes, we are experts on the English language, but you're going to see some variations in that expertise and how things are worded, and what words are appropriate and what words are not, just based off of culture, just based off of regions. When I say regions, we know up north they say pop instead of soda like they do down in the south. So those are some variations in the English language that are acceptable, and they are differences in terms of English in the language that we use. So I hope that makes sense. So we do have what we call a language competence. We are able to speak the English language. That's why, you know, you can go from ba to ba to da to mama or mommy. You know, our sounds progress, our phonemes progress, and those kinds of things. So that's in us, guys, which is takeaway number 2.